Right, good evening everyone and welcome along to this evening's Rushcliffe Borough Council's Planning Committee meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. A recording of the meeting will be available afterwards on the Council's YouTube channel. In addition, under the local authorities, executive arrangements, meetings and access to information, England Regulations 2012, other people may film, record, post on social media or blog from the meeting. The use of any such images or sound recording is not under the Council's control. May I remind councillors to please switch your microphones off when you are not speaking and to switch them on when you are speaking. Thank you. And just for our guests, I'm Councillor Richard Butler, the chairman of the committee, and with me is Councillor Wells, who is vice chairman. And officers with us this evening is Helen Knott, who is a service manager for planning, Emily Dodd, planning manager in development, James Bate, who is team manager for monitoring and implementation, Matthew Hilton, senior area planning officer, and Alison Walker, who is the borough solicitor. So welcome everyone. I'd like to move to the first item on the agenda, please, which is apologies for absence.
We have apologies from Councillor Rex Walker with Councillor Inglis substituting, and apologies from Councillor Edavine with Councillor Solomon substituting.
Thank you. So welcome Councillor Inglis and Councillor Solomon. And the next item, item 2, is declarations of interest. Yes, Councillor Thomas, you want to declare something?
I'm ward member for the first one, so I'll be stepping down.
Thank you. And likewise, I'm the ward member one of the ward members for the Copgrave application. So I'll be standing down for that item, and Councillor Wells will take the chair for that part of the meeting. So item 3 is the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 14th of March. Those of us here, are we all happy that they're correct? Okay, thank you. Have we got them for me to sign or sign them later, shall I? Okay, and we'll go now on to, and just before we go into this evening's applications, I need to check, have we all received a copy of the late representations and comments? Well done to colleagues who spotted the typing mistake in the Eastleek application that accidentally referred to Rackett-on-Trent, but that's been clarified in the late representations, so thank you for that. So we'll move on to the first application now for this evening. And this is 53 Levers Close, Eastleek, and it's the tree preservation matter to do with the application is to fell a pine at 53 Levers Close. So, Mr. Bate, you're talking us through this, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the application concerns a Corsican pine tree, which is in the rear garden of number 53 Levers Close in Eastleek. That's at the far west end of Levers Close. The property is indicated on the application plan, and there is sort of a courtyard of housing at the end. There's about 3 properties along the far western end of the street. Just an aerial photograph so you can have a bit of an idea as to how many other trees there are in the vicinity. The tree we are looking at is highlighted by the red circle, and like I say, it's in the rear garden of number 53. In a street view, it is visible from the street over the roof of the property, so it is visible only because of how tall it is. The application is to fell the tree. The application had a number of public comments, one objecting, largely citing the public presence of the tree. This part of Levers Close was previously the grounds of a manor house called Eastleek Hall, and that Corsican pine was part of the landscaping around that property. The other comments, I believe there were 3 in total from other residents who were commenting in support of the application, and there's a summary of the issues that were raised in paragraph 13 of the report. There is concerned that the tree is tall enough to be within falling distance of neighbouring properties, concerns about damage to paving and surfacing at the host property and neighbours, and damage to a retaining wall. The recommendation on the application is refusal. The ward members' comments were also objecting to the application. The reason that it is at planning committee is that refusing a tree preservation order application has a potential to create an allowance for a costs claim, for a compensation claim, should any additional damage that was foreseeable when a refusal was issued occur. The application is submitted as detailed within the report. There are sections on the application form that ask if the justification is related to the health of the tree, and if that question is answered yes, an arboricultural assessment by a tree surgeon or an arboriculturalist should be submitted. That question was answered no, and no such report was submitted. And the second question is whether the tree is causing damage to neighbouring property, and that is the justification. Again, the answer ticked to that question was no, and the suggestion is that if you tick yes, you should provide a surveyor's report or an engineer's report. Again, no such report was submitted. There were some photographs provided with the application. I'm showing those now. So one of the concerns was lifting of patio and the creation of an uneven surface. The senior landscape and design officer did visit the property, and there are roots underneath the patio. Some of them are quite large. There is potentially a concern that severing large roots can harm a tree, but the senior landscape officer was of the view that the roots here are so far from the tree that even given their size, simply severing them and clear cutting them would be unlikely to result in the decline of the tree. So effectively, there is an alternative to felling in relation to the condition of the patio. There were photographs submitted to illustrate the unevenness of the patio at number 53. There were also images submitted to show the crack in the retaining wall. The right-hand side of this image is the top, but it fits better on the screen this way, so you can more readily see the cracking that is evident in the wall. The senior landscape officer, when he visited, is not aware that any work has been done to excavate at the back of the wall to see whether there are tree roots present. Just so that you understand where you are, the lower side of the wall is where the patio is, the upper side of the wall is where the tree is. So there is no doubt that tree roots pass the wall, but it is not certain that it is tree roots that are causing the damage to the wall. And as I said, no surveyor's report was submitted. The risk for compensation, the relevant section of the report is paragraph 35, and that just details the extent to which a compensation claim could be made. So in order for compensation to be paid by the council, firstly, the claim has to be for at least £500 worth of damage. It has to be damage that happens after the refusal of an application. It's not for pre-existing issues. And subsection B is perhaps the most, subsection C is perhaps the most relevant. Loss or damage which, having regard to the application and the documents and particulars accompanying it, was not reasonably foreseeable when consent was refused, would not be subject to compensation. The lack of those reports that I mentioned earlier does make it difficult to foresee further damage, except in respect of the patio, where I think the face of the evidence in those photographs is sufficient on its own.
Right, thank you. Now we do have two guest speakers on this item. So this is the opportunity now to hear from Dr. Moule, who is the applicant, and then followed by Councillor Billin, who is the ward member. So Dr. Moule, if you come up to the table there. And I'm sure you've been told that you have up to 5 minutes to address us. If you're still speaking at 4.5 minutes, we tell you there's 30 seconds left. And if you're still speaking at 5 minutes, we have to say time up. So as soon as you're ready, press the right hand button, the red light will come on and the clock will start counting down. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to begin by assuring everybody that we're not advocating ad hoc felling of trees. In fact, we've made every effort during the last 24 years that we've been at the house to maintain the trees in the garden, including the Corsican pine. It's been pruned several times, and the walnut tree, which is also covered by a TPO. However, we believe that we now have a valid case to fell the Corsican pine. You've obviously received the additional photographs I sent in that clearly show the proximity of the roots to the external wall of the house, a distance of around 80 centimetres. These photographs weren't submitted with the initial application, these were submitted more recently. Our primary concern, as highlighted in the application, is that the tree roots will cause damage to the structure of the house and its associated drainage. And the drains run under the house, which I don't think has been mentioned so far. The roots have already caused our patio slabs to lift, and there is a growing crack, which you could see a little bit earlier, in a garden retaining wall, which we believe is caused by those tree roots. We've had 2 independent qualified builders inspect the patio and garden retaining wall with a view to repairing them. And in terms of the patio, each builder has recommended that a professional repair would require the existing patio slabs to be removed, together with a network of tree roots underneath, and a solid deep base be laid to relay the patio. We believe that removing the tree roots under the patio could unbalance the tree, and therefore to maintain the stability and safety for the surrounding properties, the Corsican pine should be felled. Based upon the visual evidence, and in particular the short distance of the tree roots to the house, we believe that it's beyond reasonable doubt that the tree roots will eventually cause damage to the structure of the house and its associated drainage. That is, if they've not already started to do so. Furthermore, it's reasonable to assume that the tree roots will cause damage to neighbouring properties. Just to reiterate, potential damage to the structure of the house and the drainage system is our main concern, and that's the reason I've taken this opportunity to come and speak to you directly today. I've read the Council's report document, which was summarised a little bit earlier, but I believe it doesn't take full account of our concerns and is unduly biased. I mean, the report makes reference to there being no submitted evidence to suggest damage to the house or the drainage, and no proof that the tree roots are responsible for the crack in the garden retaining wall. However, the lack of submitted evidence does not invalidate the basis for our application to fell the tree. That is, just because something cannot be easily seen or proved doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. In particular, the report recommendations are not based on any professionally qualified assessment, and in my view should be treated purely as a subjective opinion. If the application to fell the Corsican pine is rejected, and instead the decision is taken by the Planning Committee to follow the recommendations contained within the report, then the committee must accept full accountability for that decision. And to be absolutely clear on this, if the Planning Committee rejects the application to fell the tree, but instead endorses the report recommendations, and if the result of subsequently acting upon these recommendations, i.e. trimming the roots, results in damage to the property or the drains, then we will not hesitate to take legal action against the aforementioned committee. And that really is all I would like to say. Now, I've still got some time left, I believe. Beverly, would you like to come and add anything?
Well, just a quick one.
Well, come in, because it's being recorded.
A few years
Thank you
ago-
very much for your time.
All right, okay, thanks. A few years ago, lightning hit the tree, and we had a Boris came and he checked it all over and it was fine.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. All right, sorry. And he said the tree was about 70 years old. So I don't know where this 100-year-old tree has come from. With the walnut tree, yes. And if you look at the walnut tree where the Corsican pine is, it's now stunted growth because it's actually grown into the Corsican pine. So if we had the pine tree felled, then the walnut tree could grow, you know, further and bloom even more. So
That's your time.
right, thank you very much.
Could you just press this button off? That's it. Thank you very much. So yes, it's 5 minutes for someone in favour and 5 minutes for someone against. That's how it works. But how we split that is fine to have more than one speaker. So, Councillor Billen, do you want to address the committee?
Thank you very much,
So,
Chair.
as soon as you're ready.
I've read all of the documents in the application, including those from Mr. Pettit. And whilst I feel for the applicants themselves, having discussed this with them in the past, given the absence of an arboricultural report supporting the application, I can't support the application, and I would urge you to vote against it. And at this stage, should an arboricultural report indicate that there is a definite cause of damage to the house and liable in the future to actually fall on the house, cause severe damage, then obviously that changes things dramatically. I would just say that to chop down a tree because it might fall on a house because for its proximity would condemn an awful lot of trees in that part of Eastleigh. Station Road and the area leading up 20 Lands, which goes around the back of the property, is full of trees that are as tall, if not taller than this one, and also within proximity to cause serious damage to houses. I would like to see an arboricultural report outlining whether or not root trimming can be done safely without undermining the tree. If it's going to damage and undermine the tree and definitely cause problems in the future, then I would support the application. But I mean, my comments to you are very brief. Just to chop the tree down because it might do something, I don't think it's grounds.
Yeah, you don't have to fill the whole 5 minutes up. Don't worry, that's fine. So we've got that. So those are our final, our three guest speakers, Dr. and Mrs. Moore, who are the applicant who are applying to have the tree taken down, and Councillor Billen, who is against that request for the reasons we heard. Do you want to pick up on those points, both from the applicant and the objector, please?
I think the one thing, it is covered in the report, I did not mention it, is in relation to drains. Again, that is something that the Senior Landscape and Design Officer did make some observations on. His comments were effectively that drains in good condition that are not leaking do not attract tree roots to them. It tends to be that once they are in some way defective and leaking, that's when you get the root activity and infiltration. And again, there's nothing to suggest that such damage is currently happening. Yes, there are drains again in the area underneath the patio and underneath the property, and they are near to roots, but no demonstration that those roots are currently damaging those drains.
Okay, thank you. Right, debate and discussion and decision. So, Councillor Perrick first. Your hand. I saw your hand first, and then Councillor Mallender.
You got a couple of questions. The applicant mentions that there was some builders' recommendations when they were getting the patios checked out. Has that evidence been submitted to the council, and are we aware about that? And the second one is, when the senior landscape officer went out to see the tree, did he see the walnut tree, and is there any evidence about the walnut tree's growth being stunted, as the applicant has mentioned?
Okay.
The senior landscape officer is on annual leave. I don't believe his comments made any observations about the walnut tree, not subject to the application, so I wouldn't necessarily expect them to. The builders' sort of assessments that have been mentioned, I know that there were discussions on site. The landscape officer was of a different opinion as to the amount of work that would be necessary to re-level the patio. I think there was some suggestion that a greater scheme of work had been suggested, but there was no sort of quotation or survey or report from a builder submitted as part of the application.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mallender.
Thank you, Chair. Do excuse me, I had a dust in my eye and my contact lens has now moved, so I can't quite see properly. So I do apologise if I'm missing anything. Right, I have a couple of comments. One is that I understand that there are ways in which you can lay a patio without digging to that much depth. I've just looked it up. You can lay a patio under without having that much depth there. So that might be another alternative, perhaps, or even perhaps not have a patio there, but have perhaps a flower bed or something in that particular part. That's what I've done in my garden. I didn't like the implication of a sort of threat. And I was wondering if I could just ask the officers whether or not it is correct that should the planning committee make a decision supporting the recommendation, that we would in some way be personally responsible, or whether it would be the Borough Council as a whole should any damage occur in the way that the applicant has described. And saying that, Corsican pines can live for well, up to 500 years, but 200 years usually in this country. So it's actually quite a young tree, but in comparison to, as the ward member who spoke has pointed out in the written submission, that the tree was already there and relatively mature when the house was built. So I would therefore like to move the recommendation, please.
Thank you, Councillor Mallender. We will get answers to your questions, but do you have a seconder at this stage? Councillor, oh gosh, two hands. I saw Councillor Brown's hand first. So you're moving the recommendation as per the report, and you're seconding.
I'm happy to second that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Solomon. You want to speak? Just before you speak, just need to get answers to Councillor Mallender's question, but I'll bring you in a moment. I think, I mean, well, we'll let the officer go into detail, but I think your question about whether the committee would be personally liable, my understanding is it wouldn't be, because the committee is making a decision on behalf of the council. So if there was to be any dispute, legal dispute or otherwise, it would not be with you or me or the members of the committee, it would be with the council. But we'll just wait for...
Yeah, it was just the phrase used.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from with that, though. So yes, if you could come back on those, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, that is the understanding of officers and the legal representative in the room, is that any decision is the decision of the council, and that's where responsibility for that decision lies, not with individuals in the room. The other questions about the age of the tree, I mean, yes, trees are relatively long-lived, pine trees in particular. You know, it is a mature tree. It is of the size that you might expect it to reach, but it is not nearing the end of its life as such. And I don't think there's been any suggestion that there is any apparent defect with the tree that might give concern for its longevity. Okay.
Does that help, Councillor Mallender? Do you want to? Thank you. Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions and a comment, actually. We're trying to get some clarity so it's easier to ask. How far away from the house is this tree?
Just finding the relevant slide on that. So if you, do you want to, have you got another question as well?
Yes, I do. So you can totally understand that if their patio is uneven, that they want it relayed. So taking that up, what proportion of the roots of the tree will need to be cut and are affected by the relaying of that? Because if it's one root, I can understand the claim that it won't make much difference, but if it's a high proportion of roots, it may. And then I had an observation about something that happened recently in my ward. 3 incredibly tall trees, been there for a very, very long time. The arborist came back that they're all perfectly fine. In the last storm, one of the trees fell down and totally smashed the roof of a garage. They were incredibly lucky it did not go into the house. It just fell down. As a consequence of that, the 2 identical trees further down the line from that have both been removed to prevent their potential fall into the houses. So there is a situation where trees have been removed on the just in case they might fall on a house, because surely prevention is much better than the damage and potential loss to life that may have occurred if those trees if the same thing happens to them, and obviously the huge cost involved with resolving that as well. So that was just an observation of something that happened in my ward. Okay,
thank you for that observation. Of course, we also have the observations of the landscape officer in connection with this tree, and we, as ever, we can only really discuss what is before us and this particular case. But I hear what you say about your experience in your ward. Do we have an answer to the distance between the tree and the house, please?
The question on distance, it's not something that I have in front of me. I can present that slide again, which is the aerial photograph that shows the relative position of the tree at the rear of the property. It is at the other end of the garden from the rear elevation of the dwelling, but I don't have a distance measurement for you.
You can come back.
Can I just flag up then? You said there have been 3 other supporting comments of neighbours because they're obviously concerned about the proximity in relation to the height. It's a very tall tree in relation to the damage on their properties also. So it is not only the applicants that are very worried about it and potential cost liability. There are 3 other applicants that are in support of 3 other comments in support as well. I'm assuming that's in relation to the proximity. So I think that's an important fact that we're missing here, is how far this tree is from the property. Just an observation.
Yes, yeah, you're right to observe that. And as it says in the report, 3 in support of the application all state that they've been invited by the applicant to visit the garden on the site and view the tree and its environs, which is not at all unusual for neighbours or other interested parties to be invited to look at any, whether it's a tree or whatever application we might be looking at. Have we got anything else to add to that? No? Okay, but thank you for that. Right, well, Councillor Calvert and then Councillor Parrick.
Thank you, Chair. I note that there was a previous application in June last year for felling the tree, and reading through the report, I couldn't get any great clarification as to whether there'd been a significant change in circumstances since that refusal. So I'm really asking the planning officer if he has identified any specific changes.
Yes, well, yes, that's right. You're referring to the
Paragraph 5.
yes, paragraph 5, aren't you? Where it refers to the public amenity, and it was refused on that and not demonstrated, etc. So yes, so really, has there been any change? That's what you're wondering. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so the previous application from last year, the reason for refusal was, as is presented at paragraph 5, is that the tree has high amenity value and that none of the supporting information identified as required in section 8 of the application form had been submitted. Section 8 of the application form is that section that talks about if the justification is the health of the tree, arboricultural report; if the justification is damage to property, surveyor's report. So that the absence of those reports was the reason for refusal last time, and it's the recommended reason for refusal this time again.
Okay, does that help? Okay, then. Councillor Perrick, and then did I see another hand go up just then? No, I didn't, did I? So, Councillor Perrick.
In terms of some objections, some support received from 3 local residents, just a couple of questions. One is that residents are concerned about a fire risk if struck by lightning, and the second being about the drainage systems being located nearby and could be vulnerable to damage. So when the senior landscape officer went out, was there an assessment done about the fire risk, and if there was lightning tomorrow, what damage could it cause to the property or to the nearby properties or to the pavement or to the surrounding paving and surfacing?
So the landscape officer wouldn't be in a position to make an assessment of fire risk. I would just reiterate that any potential for compensation has to be to do with foreseeable risk. Although you can't rule out anything or anybody getting struck by lightning, I don't think that would be a foreseeable risk.
Oh yeah, Mrs. Knott. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to raise, I appreciate there's lots of different things and risks that come with trees. It could get struck by lightning, it could fall in a storm. We don't have crystal balls, we can't see what's going to happen. And if we assess those risks on every tree, we wouldn't hardly TPO anything, because there's a risk with everything. There's lots of planning appeals out there where inspectors have looked at things like this and they need to see the evidence in front of them. So we're not doing something that isn't done elsewhere around the country, and it's a protected tree and it's an important tree, and unless we have the justification in front of us to fell that, we need to proceed cautiously. So I would just stress that yes, there are lots of different risks with trees, and things have been put to us, but they haven't been justified with the evidence that we would expect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Georgia.
Do we know if there's ever been a report where cameras have been put into the drainage system to actually see if any damage has been done from any of the neighbouring houses?
Again, nothing that's been submitted in support of this application and nothing that we are aware of. The question that was asked earlier about the distance of the tree, we have just taken a rough measurement from aerial photography. Around 10 metres is the best I can give you.
Oh, and Councillor Inglis.
Yeah, thank you. On the balance, I mean, both for and against have given sort of valid arguments and reasoning to why they're correct in their statements. Both parties have used ifs and buts and reasonable belief. I know it's not planning law, but if we look at sort of testing law in the country, it's beyond reasonable doubt or the balance of probability. There's no balance. It's equal at the moment to me. And I think I'm surprised there's no technical support and report to support the application to fell a tree. Once it's felled, it's felled. There's no going back on that. So I really think this meeting is a bit premature, really, without that technical report being submitted. And I think that would sway the evidence to whether that tree needs to be felled or not. I fully appreciate the patio's lifting. But I do feel it does need some independent report to substantiate that rather than just the belief. We've got the technical advice from our environment officer with the routes, but to me, you can't put toothpaste back in the tube. So I really think we need that report to do it and to take it any further. But at this stage, I can't support the tree being felled without that report, and that's where I'm at this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Inglis. Right, so Councillor Solomon.
Just a question about a bit of clarity about risk. So scenario, the tree is hit by lightning, catches fire, falls down. Are you saying that the council would not cover the costs in that instance? Because I know how unlikely being hit by lightning is to happen, but from the evidence we've heard, it has happened already to that tree. So I just want a bit of clarity over, you know, where compensation costs would lie if that very unlikely but potential occurrence happens.
All I can do is confirm that where an application is refused, there is a right to seek compensation. There are restrictions on where compensation is payable. Those are set out in paragraph 35. And the one I would highlight again is on the basis of the information submitted in the application, something has to be reasonably foreseeable for us to be, for the council to be liable to pay compensation.
So are you stating that the council's position is that it's not a foreseeable event? Or it is a foreseeable event because it's happened before?
I think we're getting into rather deep realms about such matters, but we'll just take some advice on that.
I was just going to make the point that the purpose of the application in the form is for the applicant to demonstrate where the tree might fail or where it might cause damage, and the applicant has not provided that to us. So, as my colleague Mrs. Knott said, we can speculate, and any tree could be hit by lightning, but there is nothing in that application that says this tree is more likely to fail or more likely to cause structural damage that would then be a liability to the council in future times.
Thank you. Did you want to come? Did you indicate again? Okay, fine. Okay, right. It's important that we cover all the points that for on both sides of the arguments, which I think we're doing.
Actually,
you do want to come
yeah,
back?
actually, I was just thinking, Emily said that the burden of proof is on the applicant, and I just want to understand why, if I may ask the applicant, why wasn't that submitted?
We've got a clear report in front of us here that explains the arguments for the application and also the arguments against. We can only work on what's in front of us in the report, and I think it is quite a detailed report. Right, I don't see any other hands going up. I think we've had a pretty good debate and discussion on this. So we have a recommendation to refuse consent to fell the trees for the reasons shown in the recommendation on page 15. That's been moved by Councillor Malinder and seconded by Councillor Brown. And I think we better make a decision on this. So have a show of hands. Those in favour of the recommendation on page 15, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Anyone against? 1, 2. Okay, so and for the record, there's no. Well, we don't have abstentions, do we? But for the record, there's no. Oh, there is. So did you? I thought you just voted. Right. Let's do it again. Clear show of hands. Those in favour of the recommendation, please show. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. Those against? 2. And abstention? 1. Okay, I'm sorry I didn't see you vote on the abstention. It is unusual to abstain on planning, that's what it is, but there we are. Right, so the decision has been taken that the consent is refused for the reasons given, but I would thank the applicant and ward member for their comments, which I think we have heard and discussed, so thank you. You're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, or if you want to go, you are more than welcome to go, because we've got to do some musical chairs here as well. So I'll hand over now to Councillor Wells for the next item.
The next item is the Cockgrave Leisure Centre at Cockgrave, and Mr. Hilton is doing the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So members are advised that there is a late representation which has been circulated, and it relates to an additional condition seeking further details of the proposed entrance canopy to the entrance to the youth club. So the application relates to Cockgrave Leisure Centre, located centrally within Cockgrave, with Woodview located to the west, playing field to the east, residential properties to the north and south. And to an aerial photo there. So a number of external changes are proposed to the building, along with ancillary structures. I don't know if the plans are particularly clear. I can circulate copies if not. So. So just talking through the proposed changes. So to the east of the building, a plant room is proposed with air source heat pump. This is a proposed upgrade to the existing heating system to be a more efficient system. And associated with that, a substation is proposed to the northeast corner of the car park. Substation wouldn't result in loss of any parking spaces. And then moving across to the front of the building, a replacement entrance canopy is proposed, along with a covered cycle shelter. And then moving around to the side of the building, there's proposed to be a dedicated secondary entrance for a youth club. So the rather than utilising the main entrance, there would be a separate dedicated area within the leisure centre building for the youth club, with facilities kept separate from the rest of the leisure centre. In terms of other alterations, electric charging points are proposed to the front of Woodview frontage of the car park, so 3 sets of freestanding charging points are proposed there. External lighting is proposed to the Woodview frontage of the building to provide lighting to the pathway leading to the youth club entrance to the building. And lighting is also proposed to the new canopy to the front of the building. In terms of internal changes to the building, so as you can see, to the northern end, there would be a dedicated entrance to the youth club canopy, and then various internal alterations to ensure that it's separate from the rest of the leisure centre with its own dedicated facilities, meeting rooms, toilets, etc. And then in terms of the entrance to the main leisure centre reception, there are various internal alterations proposed, including a new accessible toilet and changing facility. So this slide just shows the replacement entrance canopy in a bit more detail. So it's proposed to be a glazed canopy on supports, and then adjacent to that we've got the cycle shelter, a very lightweight sort of canopy structure that's open to the front and rear. And this is a view of the car park elevation of the building. To the right hand side you can see the plant room and air source heat pump. The roof mounted air source heat pump would be screened with an acoustic screen to the frontage. This is the view from the side elevation, the playing field side elevation of the building, showing the air source heat pump. And then rear elevation of the building. This plan just shows the internal reconfiguration in a bit more detail and the external lighting that's proposed. So in addition to those changes, new fencing is proposed to partition off the entrance to Youth Club from the remainder of Leisure Centre site with a gated access. And then this is just a view of the electric charging points, which you can see to the left-hand side, so 3 sets of freestanding pillars and 6 dedicated parking spaces in place of the current 9 spaces. So just some photos of the site. So Woodview frontage, so main entrance on the to the sort of right-hand side, Youth Club entrance will be to the left-hand side there. Frontage where the canopy is to be replaced. And then the cycle store will be roughly where that skip is in the photo at the moment. View across the front of the building looking towards the playing field and the site of the proposed plant room and air source heat pump. And then a view from the southeast corner of car park looking towards the site of the proposed plant room and air source heat pump and the substation. And then another view towards the site of the plant room. So in terms of external appearance, plant room building would be a modular building with the roof-mounted air source heat pump, which consists of a series of roof-mounted fans and screening, as I said earlier. It would have limited prominence from Woodview due to its siting tucked around the back of the building there, and it offers the views that there would also be limited visibility from the east due to the elevated nature of the playing field. The substation element again would be towards the rear of the car park area. Should planning permission be granted, conditions proposed that there would be landscaping to help soften the appearance of the substation when viewed from Woodview. And then the entrance canopy element would be a lightweight structure similar to what's there, but with a glazed roof rather than the current sort of solid roof. Again, with the secondary canopy to the Youth Club entrance, that would be a similar lightweight glazed structure. And these, along with the proposed bike shelter, are considered to be very minimal in terms of their visual intrusion. In terms of residential amenity, the main consideration is the potential noise impact of the air source heat pump and plant room. They are replacing an existing system which is less efficient and currently generates a higher noise level, and there is an acoustic report which has been submitted as part of the application, including monitoring the current situation, which provides a comparison of the current and proposed noise levels as assessed from the closest neighbouring properties. And just in support of that, Environmental Health do not object to the proposal, given the distance from neighbouring properties, lower noise output and the acoustic screening. In terms of lighting, this will be on the front of the building. There is currently already various flood lighting on the building, and in the context of the street lighting to Woodview, and the distance from neighbours, it's not considered that this element would have an undue impact on the closest neighbouring properties. And just in terms of the internal alterations, because these would represent a betterment in terms of community benefits by providing a dedicated separate youth club along with the improved accessibility features of the main entrance to the leisure centre. Therefore, for the reasons set out in the officer report, the application is before you with recommendation to grant planning permission, subject to the conditions set out in the report and the additional condition in relation to the proposed details of the canopy to the youth club entrance to the building.
Thank you very much. So this is the plan we've got. Any comments, councillors? Yes.
Just like to say that the proposal submitted is very thorough. It accords with the principles of sustainable development with huge benefits to the community in Cottgrave, including youth. So I'm in support of this and would like to move the recommendation.
Yes, I agree. I'm happy to second the recommendation. It's more sustainable, quieter heating system. There's better provision for young people and for cyclists, and therefore active travel, and improved inclusion with the accessible toilet. So there's been no objections. It's only here because it's a Borough Council application.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Yeah, thank you. Just looking at it from another angle is the antisocial behaviour that I know the leisure centre has been suffering recently, with use around the entrance and intimidating staff and users. So I think the idea of having a separate entrance to the youth club will help enhance that for the user experience and for the staff. I'm not saying for 1 minute it's the users of the young people centre that's causing the problems, but that will attract others to come as well. So I'm all for the separate entrance as well. I think that's a really good idea. Thank you.
I'd just like to clarify if there are any existing bicycle parking options, or is it just going to be the first 5? And if, depending on the answer, I may want a supplementary. Please.
Would the officer like to come back?
So my understanding is, actually, I don't have a picture at the moment, but there are existing bike loops in front of the building, but they're not covered. They're just open, so it would provide, a betterment in terms of a degree of shelter whilst you're, I guess, locking up your bike and keeping your bike dry if it is raining and you're in the leisure centre.
It's 10 bikes, isn't it? 5 racks, 10 bikes.
So the provision would be 5 cycle hoops, so for 10 bikes. Unfortunately, that photo, they are, I think, painted a green colour, so they don't stand out particularly, but there are some cycle hoops in front of the building already. So you can see 3 on there at the moment. So it would be an increase of 2, so a betterment in that sense.
Councillor Calvert?
Okay, it sounds like there is something existing at the moment, but reading the report, I just felt that having people driving to a leisure centre and parking and then going on the cycle machine and then coming back and driving away again could be a missed opportunity, and that everything should be done to encourage people to make use of the cycling facilities that are provided, and maybe then if there's something additional condition to have some form of travel plan or some kind of campaign to try and encourage cycling may be helpful.
So I think we do need to recognise it's an existing facility with the existing cycle racks. There's no increase in capacity or number of users, so it'd be very difficult, I think, to argue that additional cycle racks are required. And we do have to consider the application in front of us, which is for the number of cycle racks proposed.
Yes, councillor. Anybody else? Any other councillor? No? So I call for the vote. Or councillor had the proposed, councillor, all in favour? Thank you very much. That's passed. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I voted as well.
Thank you, Councillor Wills. And we come on to our final item tonight, which is really for noting. It's recent appeal decisions, and there's some interesting information on there. Very happy to take any comments or questions, or indeed, do officers, do you want to sort of talk to us about any of them? Or well, first of all, has any members got any comments about the appeal reports? No. And do you want to? Oh, sorry, yes. So, I'm sorry, couldn't see your hand.
Thank you, Chair. I went to the pre-planning meeting, and the one at Keith's was quite interesting because it was a split decision that we got rid of the stairs, but the inspector allowed the height of the ridge tiles. So I was told it goes against the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Yes, that was an interesting one, and I think we're probably going to hear a little bit about this because to have a split appeal is very unusual, isn't it? And it's perhaps something that I don't remember one in the past. Maybe there have been, but I certainly don't remember one. But could you add to that?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So members might remember this one because it came to committee and was refused at committee, and Councillor Wells is quite right, the inspector split the decision. It's not an option that's available to us as a council, but it is something the inspector can do. Unfortunately, it does then count as us losing an appeal because it's a split decision when we are measured in terms of our performance. But nonetheless, it's an interesting one to go and have a look at and see how the inspector weighed up those two matters.
Thank you. So yes, as you say, it's unfortunate the system goes against us in terms of records and all the rest of it, but it's not our fault, is it? It's just the way the system is. So, but there we are. Right. Any other comments, questions? No. So well, that's for noting, and so that's the final item on the agenda tonight. We've had a very light agenda. It's not normal to have such a light agenda. And I suspect that in future meetings we'll be back up to our very heavy agenda. There's just the way the timing has worked out for reports to be ready. So we'll declare the meeting closed at 6:58. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your contributions, and safe journeys home. See you next time. Thank you.